Welcome. This is a calm story. Tonight, we explore one of the mysteries of our world. You can listen with curiosity, or you can simply relax. There is nothing you need to do. Just listen, and let the story begin. Since the earliest days of long ocean voyages, sailors have told of ships appearing far off the horizon, only to vanish when approached. In the 17th and 18th centuries, when explorers crossed vast and lonely stretches of ocean, these sightings were often recorded in ship logs as strange, fleeting visions. The sun, heat, and humidity above the water could create optical illusions, bending light in unusual ways. A ship might appear suspended above the waves, or its sails might shimmer in the distance, appearing and disappearing as if carried by the air itself. Experienced captains would note these sightings carefully, unsure whether they were glimpses of distant merchant vessels, lost ships, or merely tricks of the light. Even with the best maps of the era, the oceans remained largely mysterious. In the calm and silent waters, where waves barely broke and the wind sometimes disappeared for days, sailors were left with little to guide them but the horizon and the stars. A ghostly vessel could seem to drift closer, then vanish entirely, leaving only the soft ripple of the sea as proof it had ever been there. These early accounts would later become the foundation of legends, inspiring stories of ships caught between reality and illusion, drifting silently in the mysterious oceans. Since the age of sail, mariners navigating the vast and silent seas often reported ships that, from afar, seemed as solid and unmoving as islands. In the 18th and 19th centuries, when charts were incomplete and vast stretches of ocean remained unexplored, these sightings were recorded with a mix of awe and confusion. A large dark hull on a calm horizon, with masts faintly outlined, could easily appear to be a rocky outcrop or an island barely peeking above the water. Sailors would approach cautiously, expecting to find land, only to realize, sometimes too late, that it was a drifting vessel, abandoned or adrift for weeks. In the dead calm of the silent seas, where wind and wave barely disturbed the surface, a ship could remain nearly motionless, reinforcing the illusion. Captains and crew would note these occurrences in their logs, blending practical observation with superstition, uncertain if they had seen a real ship, a mirage, or a trick of the light. These experiences added to the growing lore of ghost ships. Each mistaken island became a story to share in port, a gentle warning of the ocean's deceptive stillness and the quiet mystery that awaited beyond the horizon. Since the earliest days of transoceanic navigation, sailors often noticed that in certain calm and isolated regions, ships seemed suspended on the water. The silent seas, with barely a ripple or gust of wind, created a strange illusion. Sails hung motionless, hulls floated almost without movement, as if time itself had paused. In the 18th and 19th centuries, captains carefully recorded these observations in their logs, both intrigued and unsettled. Drifting vessels, abandoned or simply at rest in calm waters, gave the impression of being frozen, unmoving, like ghosts drifting on the horizon. Experienced crews knew the stillness could be deceiving, yet the sight was mesmerizing. Watching a ship motionless in the silent seas inspired wonder and a quiet respect for the vastness of the ocean. This phenomenon fueled many ghost ship stories, as observers recounted seeing vessels suspended in time, drifting gently and silently, almost like phantoms on the water. As ships drifted quietly across the silent seas, the water often became a flawless mirror, reflecting the sky in perfect clarity. Sunlight scattered across this glassy surface, creating glimmers that danced like sparks on the waves. For sailors navigating in the 18th and 19th centuries, such reflections could be both mesmerizing and disorienting. A distant hull might seem to float above the water, its shape doubled by the reflection, or sails might shimmer as if glowing with their own light. Captains recorded in their logs how the mirrored seas could trick the eye, making objects appear closer or farther than they truly were. Even seasoned crews found themselves pausing, squinting, and adjusting course, caught between admiration for the beauty of the ocean and caution against its illusions. The quiet of these waters heightened every visual effect. Without wind or waves to disturb the reflections, the world seemed suspended, a calm and silent spectacle of light and shadow. In such moments, it was easy to imagine that the ships drifting across this mirrored expanse were not quite of this world, wandering silently like specters under the sun. After the dazzling reflections of the mirror-like seas, fog often descended upon the silent seas, wrapping the ships and horizon in a soft, white veil. In the 18th and 19th centuries, sailors navigating these vast waters noted how the fog could appear suddenly, shrouding a vessel in mystery, and then parting just long enough to reveal its faint outline. The thick mist muffled sound and blurred vision, making even familiar objects seem distant or distorted. Crew members would strain their eyes through the haze, catching glimpses of masts or the glint of a hull, only to watch them vanish moments later. For those aboard, it felt as if the ocean itself was breathing, drawing the world into quiet secrecy. Fog transformed the ordinary into the extraordinary. An abandoned ship might drift silently, half hidden and half revealed, appearing like a wandering ghost. Captains recorded these experiences in logs and journals, describing the eerie calm and the sense that the world had softened, slowed, and grown almost dreamlike beneath the mist. In the stillness of the fog, even the bravest sailors felt a gentle shiver of wonder, and perhaps a quiet awe for the mysterious ocean that held so many secrets. In the silent seas, the calm did more than still the waves. It swallowed sound itself. Bells, creaking wood, and even the shouts of sailors seemed muted, carried away by the soft, motionless water. Logs from the 18th and 19th centuries describe moments when a ship could drift entirely unseen and unheard, as if the ocean had wrapped it in a quiet cloak. For those aboard, the silence was profound. Without the usual rhythm of wind and wave, the world felt suspended. A drifting vessel might glide alongside, yet no noise betrayed its presence. Crew members often spoke in whispers, not from fear, but in awe of the hushed vastness that surrounded them. This quiet gave ghost ships their eerie character. Ships abandoned for days or weeks could appear like spirits moving through the water, invisible to distant sailors except for the faintest glimmer of their masts or the reflection of the sun on their hulls. In that deep, enveloping silence, the ocean seemed alive, yet profoundly still, a space where time slowed and the mystery of the sea became almost tangible. In the days before modern navigation, sailors often relied on more than sight. Across the silent seas, there were times when a ghost ship seemed to announce itself not with sails or masts, but with its scent. Logs from the 18th and 19th centuries describe distant, drifting vessels where the first sign of their presence was a faint, strange odor carried on the wind. It could be the sharp tang of pitch and tar, or the earthy, musty scent of rotting wood and forgotten cargo. Crew members would pause, noses drawn to the breeze, straining to locate the source. By the time the eyes could make out the hull or the masts, the mind had already begun to imagine the stories of these drifting, abandoned ships. This subtle herald heightened the mystery. The ocean was vast, and the waters silent, yet the senses remained alert. A ship might glide into view slowly, almost imperceptibly, bringing with it the soft reminder that humans were not alone on the sea. These whispered warnings, carried by wind and current, became part of the lore of ghost ships, silent presences, announcing themselves in ways both gentle and unsettling, long before they could be seen. As the fog thickened over the silent seas, ships could appear as if floating in a dream. In the 18th and 19th centuries, sailors noted in their journals how abandoned vessels would drift through the mist, their movement nearly imperceptible. The fog swallowed every creak of the hull, every whisper of wind in the rigging, leaving only the faintest silhouette emerging and fading with the haze. Crew members often described the strange sensation of watching a ship glide silently, as if it had no weight at all. The world around them, water, sky, and horizon, blurred together, softening the boundaries between reality and imagination. In such quiet moments, a drifting vessel could appear and vanish repeatedly, reinforcing the stories of ghost ships that moved through the seas without sound or haste. These experiences became part of the lore that surrounded the silent seas. Sailors spoke in hushed tones of ships that seemed alive in their silence, vessels that moved with the grace of spirits, invisible to all but the most attentive eyes. The combination of fog, still waters, and distant shapes created a hypnotic calm, one that lingered long after the ship itself had disappeared. In the calmest stretches of the silent seas, sailors often noticed a curious and unsettling phenomenon. The surface of the water, smooth as glass, reflected shadows almost perfectly, yet they barely moved. Masts and sails appeared frozen, their shapes lingering in the sunlight or the soft glow of dawn, giving the impression that the ships themselves were fixed in time. Mariners in the 18th and 19th centuries recorded these moments in their logs, sometimes with a sense of quiet wonder, sometimes with unease. Without wind to stir the rigging or waves to ripple the hull, a drifting vessel could look like it had paused in the middle of a journey, caught between past and present. Crew members would watch, holding their breath, as the ship floated slowly, seemingly unaware of the ocean around it. This stillness, combined with the reflective surface of the water, enhanced the ghostly aura of abandoned vessels. Sailors spoke of ships that lingered in the horizon, silent and motionless, as if the ocean itself had chosen to suspend them in a perfect, serene moment. In those quiet hours, the line between reality and imagination blurred, and the silent seas felt both alive and timeless, holding their secrets in gentle, suspended calm. As evening fell over the silent seas, the world seemed to soften into darkness, and the ghost ships took on a new, otherworldly presence. Mariners in the 18th and 19th centuries often recorded seeing faint lights shimmering along the edges of drifting vessels. These were not lanterns or lamps, but the gentle glow of bioluminescent plankton, sparkling in the water as it moved against the hull. The effect was mesmerizing. Ships appeared as if they were lit from within, ghostly vessels floating silently in the dark, their shapes outlined by soft, dancing lights. Sailors described how the water seemed alive with stars, tiny points of light swirling around the ship, giving it an almost magical quality. In the stillness of the night, with no wind, no waves, and only the faint glimmer of plankton, even seasoned sailors felt a sense of awe. The combination of calm waters, drifting hulls, and glowing bioluminescence transformed ordinary ships into ethereal, floating wonders. It was a quiet reminder of the beauty and mystery of the ocean, and of the silent, hidden lives of ghost ships that drifted under the moon and stars. On the silent seas, the currents were often unpredictable, weaving subtle patterns that could carry a vessel in ways that seemed impossible. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries recorded astonishment when abandoned ships drifted in directions contrary to the wind or the known flow of the sea. A ship might appear to move steadily eastward, even when the tides should have carried it west, leaving observers puzzled and intrigued. These unexpected movements contributed to the aura of mystery surrounding ghost ships. From the deck of a nearby vessel, a drifting hull seemed to have a will of its own, gliding silently through the water as though guided by some unseen hand. Experienced navigators would consult their charts and notes, trying to reconcile what they saw with the known currents, only to realize that the ocean had its own secrets. In the calm and stillness of the silent seas, time seemed suspended, and even the movement of water became part of the enigma. Ships drifting against the currents reminded sailors that the ocean was vast and unknowable, and that its quiet surface could conceal patterns and forces invisible to the human eye. In this way, the ocean itself became a storyteller, carrying ghost ships along paths that challenged both reason and imagination. Sailors of the 18th and 19th centuries often observed that some drifting vessels seemed strangely unvisited by seabirds. While gulls and terns normally followed ships, picking at scraps or riding the wind currents, ghost ships were sometimes eerily bare of life. The absence of birds, subtle as it was, gave the drifting vessels an almost unnatural presence, as if they existed in a world separate from the living sea. Crew members would notice it quietly, pointing out to one another that the ship ahead seemed different, still, and untouched by the usual signs of life. In an era before scientific explanations were fully understood, such observations added to the lore of ghost ships, fueling stories of cursed or haunted vessels. Even in calm waters, where reflections and fog played tricks on the eye, the lack of birds created a gentle, unnerving stillness. The ocean itself seemed to hold its breath, emphasizing the isolation of the ship drifting silently, a solitary figure upon the vast, quiet sea. In these moments, the world felt both alive and strangely suspended, a subtle reminder of the mysteries hidden in the silent seas. As sailors observed ghost ships across the silent seas, they sometimes noticed that certain vessels rode lower than expected, almost as if they were weighed down by unseen burdens. Logs from the 18th and 19th centuries describe hulls that seemed to sink gently into the calm waters, with the decks nearly touching the surface, and the reflection of the ship merging with the mirrored sea below. This subtle sinking could be caused by slow leaks or water entering the hold, but to observers at a distance, it often appeared mysterious. A ship drifting low, silent, and unmanned created an impression of melancholy, as though it were carrying the weight of its past journeys and the echoes of crews long gone. Experienced captains would take note, sometimes altering their course to avoid such drifting vessels, both for safety and out of caution for the unknown. To the imagination, these low-riding ships seemed almost alive, gliding solemnly over the water, a quiet presence that reminded sailors of the ocean's power and the secrets it held beneath its glassy surface. In the calm of the silent seas, even the smallest differences in a ship's posture became part of the story of ghost ships. Even after weeks adrift, some ghost ships seemed almost untouched by time. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries recorded vessels whose sails remained neatly furled, rigging taut, and masts upright, despite the absence of any crew. In calm waters, without the constant strain of wind and waves, the ropes and canvas endured far longer than one might expect, preserving the ship's appearance as if it was still manned. To observers, these ships had an uncanny stillness. From a distance, they looked ready to sail at any moment, their rigging humming quietly in the breeze, or sometimes remaining entirely motionless, adding to the illusion of life aboard. Logs from the era often described the haunting beauty of such vessels, drifting silently, their structures intact and poised, like snapshots frozen in time. This preservation made the ghost ships even more mysterious. Sailors could see a hull, sails, and masts perfectly aligned, yet no crew appeared, no flags fluttered, and no sounds arose. In the reflective, calm waters of the silent seas, these upright ships seemed suspended between worlds, caught in a quiet balance between the past and the present, carrying the stories of those who had once sailed them into the endless horizon. On some ghost ships, sailors discovered something even more extraordinary: the faint warmth of a galley stove, long after the crew had vanished. In the journals of 18th and 19th century mariners, there are accounts of ships found drifting with embers still glowing, as though the cook had just left the kitchen moments before. This subtle sign suggested that departure had been sudden, almost hurried, leaving behind traces of human activity that the sea had not yet claimed. The warmth, delicate and fleeting, seemed to whisper stories of interrupted meals, unspoken farewells, and lives that had vanished into the vastness of the ocean. For the observers, these small details heightened the sense of mystery. Ships could appear pristine, sails upright, rigging taut, and yet carry this quiet evidence of recent life. It reminded sailors that ghost ships were not simply abandoned. They had histories, small human moments frozen in time, suspended in the calm, reflective waters of the silent seas. In these quiet encounters, the ocean revealed both its stillness and its secrets, softly urging respect and wonder for the drifting vessels it held. On some ghost ships, sailors reported a quiet, almost poignant scene in the galley and dining areas. Tables remained set, pots and pans lay in their places, and in rare instances, half-eaten food sat untouched, as if the crew had been called away suddenly. Logs from the 18th and 19th centuries described these moments with a mix of fascination and quiet unease, the vessels appearing alive in their stillness, yet completely devoid of human presence. The calm of the silent seas amplified the impression. No sound, no motion, only the faint scent of long-cooling meals lingering in the air. To a passing sailor, the scene could feel like a pause in time, a window into lives that had vanished without warning. Every carefully arranged plate, every scattered utensil, told a silent story of the ordinary, interrupted by the extraordinary. These subtle details made ghost ships feel personal, almost intimate. They were not merely abandoned hulls. They were vessels carrying fragments of human life, caught in the quiet vastness of the ocean. Observing such scenes, sailors were reminded of the ocean's power and the mysteries it could hold, silently floating across the mirror-like waters of the silent seas. Occasionally, ghost ships revealed traces of their journeys in the most delicate and mysterious ways. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries recorded finding bottles floating nearby, sealed carefully with handwritten notes inside. These messages often told stories of crews in distress, warnings of disease, or simple pleas for help, drifting silently across the ocean with the currents. The calm and still waters of the silent seas carried these bottles great distances. A note thrown overboard could travel for weeks, even months, before being discovered along distant shores, far from the ship that had released it. To the sailors who found them, the bottles were quiet reminders of human life once present, a gentle connection across vast, empty seas. There was a subtle, almost poetic quality to these discoveries. A ship might drift silently, abandoned and still, while its words, contained in fragile glass, moved steadily onward, carrying fragments of its story into the wider world. In these moments, the ocean felt alive with whispers, and the ghost ships seemed not entirely empty, but filled with echoes of lives, voices, and journeys long vanished from sight, yet preserved in fragile, floating messages. On rare occasions, ghost ships did not remain lost to the open sea. Instead, they slowly made their way back toward familiar harbors, guided by gentle currents and tides. In the 18th and 19th centuries, port records and harbor logs mention abandoned vessels discovered at dawn, resting quietly at anchor or drifting near docks where no ship had been expected. These arrivals often occurred at night, when the sea was calm and the harbor lay quiet. Dockworkers arriving at first light would find a ship waiting silently, its lines trailing in the water, its decks empty. No signals had been given, no lanterns lit, no voices heard. The ship seemed to have returned on its own, carried patiently home by the sea. Such moments left a lasting impression. Familiar hulls, once thought lost, reappeared without explanation, as though completing a journey long unfinished. In the stillness of early morning, these ghost ships felt less frightening and more solemn. Silent reminders that the ocean never truly lets go, but sometimes returns what it has taken, softly and without announcement. After encountering a ghost ship on the open sea, sailors did not always approach it directly. Accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe crews who chose instead to follow at a careful distance, watching silently as an abandoned vessel drifted ahead of them. The ship moved slowly, guided by unseen currents, while those observing it remained unsure of what they might find aboard. Superstition played a quiet role in these decisions. Many sailors believed that boarding such a vessel could bring misfortune, illness, or bad luck. Others feared disease, hidden damage, or unseen danger. And so, the ghost ship was allowed its solitude, watched from afar as it continued its silent journey across the calm water. For days at a time, these vessels would remain within sight, always just beyond reach. Crews spoke softly about them, observing how they turned with the tide or vanished briefly into fog, only to reappear again. In the end, most ghost ships were left alone, continuing onward without interference. These moments reinforced the idea that some ships belonged not to the living world of sailors, but to the quiet, drifting realm of the silent seas themselves. In the vast stillness of the silent seas, not all ghost ships were discovered by sight alone. Some revealed themselves only through sudden, unexpected contact. Historical records from the 18th and 19th centuries describe collisions that occurred in calm weather, when visibility seemed clear and the ocean appeared empty. With no waves to lift or lower a vessel, and no wind to announce another ship's presence, abandoned hulls could remain nearly invisible. A lookout might see nothing but open water, until the gentle but unmistakable shock of wood meeting would echoed through the ship. These collisions were rarely violent, yet they carried a deep sense of surprise and unease. Only afterward would sailors discover the cause: a silent, unmanned vessel drifting quietly in their path. Such encounters reminded crews that the ocean's calm could be deceptive, hiding dangers beneath its peaceful surface. In the stillness that followed, the ghost ship would often drift away once more, leaving behind a story, a mark on the hull, and a lasting reminder that even in silence, the sea is never truly empty. Long before modern science explained the sea, sailors lived by tradition, ritual, and belief. In the 18th and 19th centuries, superstition was woven deeply into maritime life. A sudden illness, a strange dream, an ill-timed omen, or an unexplained event could quietly shift the mood of an entire crew. Some ghost ships were not abandoned because they were damaged, but because they were believed to be cursed. Sailors spoke of dead birds landing on deck, compasses spinning without reason, or stars disappearing behind unexpected clouds. In the enclosed world of a ship at sea, fear could grow slowly and silently, until remaining aboard felt more dangerous than leaving. When such beliefs took hold, crews sometimes chose to abandon vessels that were still capable of sailing. Boats were lowered, supplies gathered, and the ship was left behind, adrift, silent, and intact. These decisions were rarely recorded openly, yet they echoed through maritime lore. In the calm waters of the silent seas, superstition became as powerful as wind or tide, shaping the fate of ships and turning ordinary vessels into the ghostly drifters remembered for generations. When sailors stepped aboard certain ghost ships, they sometimes noticed something unusual. Doors to cabins were closed and secured, hatches fastened, and personal quarters left carefully shut. These were not the signs of panic, but of intention. Historical accounts suggest that crews often took time to prepare the ship before leaving it behind. In the 18th and 19th centuries, sealing cabins served both practical and symbolic purposes. It helped protect supplies from the elements, but it also reflected a sense of order and respect. Sailors believed that closing a ship properly might prevent bad fortune from following them, or allow the vessel to remain safe until rescue or recovery. This quiet preparation added to the mystery of ghost ships. Everything appeared arranged, secured, and preserved, yet no one remained aboard. In the stillness of the silent seas, sealed cabins hinted at careful decisions made under calm skies, transforming these vessels into time capsules of maritime life, silent, orderly, and waiting without expectation for those who might one day return. Contrary to dramatic tales of storms and chaos, many ghost ships were abandoned in moments of calm. Logs and survivor accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries reveal that crews often lowered lifeboats gently into still water, choosing to leave while the sea was quiet and predictable. The silent seas offered a rare sense of stability, making departure less dangerous than remaining aboard an uncertain vessel. Sailors moved methodically, gathering supplies and helping one another into the boats. The absence of wind and waves allowed these final moments to pass slowly and with care. Once the lifeboats were clear, the abandoned ship was left drifting behind, sails slack, masts upright, and decks empty. As distance grew between crew and vessel, the ship became something else entirely. No longer under human control, it joined the quiet rhythm of the sea. The lifeboats carried people towards safety, while the ship continued onward alone, beginning its transformation into a ghost ship. Silent, steady, and carried gently by the calm waters of the silent seas. Once abandoned, a ship did not simply stop existing. In the calm regions of the silent seas, certain ghost ships continued to drift for years, guided only by currents and slow-moving winds. Maritime records from the 18th and 19th centuries describe vessels discovered long after their crews had vanished, their hulls weathered but intact, their presence a quiet testament to endurance. These ships became travelers without purpose, crossing vast distances without direction or command. Barnacles gathered along their sides, ropes stiffened with salt, and paint faded under the sun. Yet the ships remained afloat, silently outlasting the lives of those who once called them home. For sailors who encountered them, these long-drifting vessels inspired reflection rather than fear. They represented the passage of time, the persistence of human craft, and the ocean's ability to preserve what it chooses. In the stillness of the silent seas, ghost ships became moving monuments, patient, solitary, and enduring, carrying the memory of their crews far beyond the span of human life. As months turned into years, the ocean began to reclaim the ghost ships drifting across the silent seas. Without crews to clean or maintain them, hulls became home to barnacles, algae, and small shellfish. Seaweed wrapped gently around rudders and anchors, while fish gathered beneath the shade of the floating vessel. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries often remarked that these ships no longer felt empty. Instead, they seemed quietly alive in a different way. Birds might perch on the masts, fish circled below, and insects sometimes settled aboard after long journeys at sea. The ship became part of the ocean's rhythm, no longer resisting it, but slowly blending in. This transformation softened the mystery of ghost ships. What began as a human vessel of wood and rope evolved into a drifting island, shaped by water, sun, and time. In the calm stillness of the silent seas, these ships reminded observers that nothing is ever truly abandoned. The ocean adapts, absorbs, and continues, turning silence into life and solitude into quiet balance. As ghost ships continued to drift across the silent seas, their appearances were no longer seen as entirely random. Over time, sailors noticed that certain vessels seemed to reappear along familiar routes. In the 18th and 19th centuries, careful captains began marking these sightings on their navigation charts, noting locations where abandoned ships were seen again and again. These markings were subtle, small symbols, brief notes in the margins, or quiet mentions in ship logs. They were not official routes, but patterns observed through experience. Currents, tides, and prevailing winds guided ghost ships along slow, predictable paths, turning them into silent travelers of known waters. For sailors, these charted sightings became gentle warnings rather than sources of fear. Knowing where ghost ships tended to drift helped crews remain alert in calm regions where visibility could be deceptive. In this way, ghost ships became part of maritime knowledge, woven quietly into the language of maps and memory. In the stillness of the silent seas, even abandoned vessels left traces, lines drawn not by intention, but by time and tide. In the calm regions of the silent seas, visibility could change without warning. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries frequently described dense fog banks and shimmering air that bent light in subtle ways. Under these conditions, distant objects appeared distorted, enlarged, or strangely close, turning ordinary ships into eerie silhouettes suspended on the horizon. Ghost ships were especially affected by these illusions. A vessel drifting far away might suddenly seem near enough to touch, its masts towering unnaturally above the water. As crews approached, the image would slowly shift, revealing the ship to be much farther off than expected. This gradual change created a sense of uncertainty, as though the ship were moving without sound. These visual effects deepened the mystery surrounding ghost ships. Fog softened their outlines, removed sharp details, and allowed imagination to fill the gaps. In the quiet stillness of the silent seas, where sound carried poorly and motion was slow, fog and mirage worked together to blur reality. Ghost ships became not only physical objects, but fleeting visions, appearing, fading, and drifting through layers of light and silence. At night, when the sea lay calm and the sky was clear, the moon cast its gentle light across the silent seas. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries recorded how this silver glow transformed drifting vessels into ethereal shapes. Hulls shimmered faintly, sails glowed with a soft luminescence, and shadows stretched across the glassy surface of the water, giving the impression that the ships were floating between worlds. The quiet of the night amplified the effect. Without wind or waves to disturb the reflection, each ship appeared almost suspended, moving slowly as if guided by the moon itself. Logs describe how even experienced crews, familiar with the vessels of the sea, felt a quiet awe in the presence of these luminous forms. Moonlight turned ordinary driftwood and distant hulls into delicate visions. Ghost ships glided silently, outlined in pale light, their forms softened and magnified by the calm water. In these moments, the silent seas felt suspended in time, and sailors understood why stories of spectral vessels had endured for generations. Quiet, luminous, and hauntingly beautiful beneath the watchful glow of the moon. In the still, moonlit waters of the silent seas, the surface often became a perfect mirror. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries described the strange effect. A ghost ship gliding along the horizon might seem to have a twin, a mirrored image floating just beneath it. The hull, masts, and sails appeared doubled, creating the illusion of a ship suspended both on and beneath the water. This mirrored appearance added to the otherworldly aura of drifting vessels. Observers would watch in quiet fascination as the reflection wavered slightly with the gentlest ripple, making the ship seem alive, shifting between reality and vision. Even experienced captains could be fooled, misjudging distance and position, unsure whether the vessel was near or far, real or imagined. These reflections turned the ocean into a stage for gentle illusions. Ghost ships, already silent and unmanned, became even more mysterious, their forms repeated across the glassy surface. In the quiet of the silent seas, where light and water blended seamlessly, the mirrored ships seemed suspended in a timeless space. Floating between the world above and the world below, an elegant and haunting dance of reality and imagination. In the silent seas, illusions could play tricks even on the most experienced eyes. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries often recorded mysterious sightings. Tall, white sails drifting across the horizon, yet no hull could be seen beneath them. The phenomenon, sometimes caused by light bending, fog, or distant waves, made the sails appear to float independently, as if suspended in the air. These ghostly visions startled and fascinated crews. Observers would strain their eyes, searching for the missing hull, only to see the sails shimmer, shift, or vanish entirely. Logs describe the strange stillness around such sightings. No sound of water against the hull, no shadow on the waves, only the graceful movement of phantom sails in calm or misty waters. The effect was subtle yet unforgettable. The silent seas seemed to stretch the boundaries between reality and imagination, allowing the human mind to glimpse fleeting shapes that were almost, but not quite there. In the quiet of these moments, the phantom sails added another layer to the mystery of ghost ships, silent witnesses to the ocean's power to deceive, mesmerize, and inspire wonder. Occasionally, sailors would encounter ghost ships drifting in places where no vessel was expected. In the 18th and 19th centuries, mariners recorded sightings far from established shipping lanes, where the ocean seemed empty and vast. These unexpected appearances heightened the sense of mystery, as if the ships had chosen their own secret paths across the silent seas. Navigators would check their charts and logs, sometimes retracing their route to ensure they had not strayed, only to confirm that the ghost ship's position was indeed unusual. In calm, mirror-like waters, an unmanned hull could float silently for days, carried by slow currents, appearing where no one anticipated. These unexpected sightings reminded sailors of the ocean's unpredictability. Even in the age of careful maps and experience, the sea could conceal vessels in plain sight, allowing them to drift along hidden paths. Ghost ships, wandering far from familiar routes, became living legends, silent travelers of the open waters, moving at their own pace, and carrying the quiet enigma of the silent seas into every corner of the horizon. Even in the quiet, moonlit expanse of the silent seas, ghost ships sometimes revealed unexpected signs of life, or what seemed like life. Mariners in the 18th and 19th centuries occasionally noted fleeting glimmers of light appearing along the decks or through cabin windows of abandoned vessels. These lights appeared without lanterns being lit, without crew in sight, and vanished as suddenly as they had come. Such sightings were often described with a mix of awe and caution. The glow might flicker across the sails, shimmer along the rigging, or reflect softly off the calm water. Crews observing from a distance felt a surreal stillness, as if the ship were quietly illuminating its own passage through the night. Explanations were scarce. Some believed the lights were caused by phosphorescent algae, lanterns hidden below decks, or distant reflections bending through fog. Others whispered of spirits or lingering energy from those who had once sailed the ship. Regardless of cause, the effect was hauntingly beautiful. In the silent seas, a ghost ship could appear both motionless and radiant, a gentle beacon in the dark, reminding sailors of the ocean's endless capacity for mystery and quiet wonder. Even after long periods of seeming disappearance, ghost ships could return to sight without warning. Mariners in the 18th and 19th centuries often recorded the eerie moment when a vessel previously lost to the horizon or hidden by fog would reappear, drifting silently as if it had never left. These sudden reappearances were both startling and mesmerizing. A ship that had not been seen for weeks might appear just over the horizon, its sails intact, masts upright, and hull gliding calmly through the still water. Sailors would pause in awe, noting the uncanny quietness and the absence of any sign of crew or activity. The phenomenon became a quiet part of maritime lore. Ghost ships, appearing and disappearing at their own pace, reminded observers that the ocean had its own rhythms. Time seemed suspended around these vessels, as if they moved according to a schedule beyond human understanding. In the calm, mirror-like waters of the silent seas, a ship could vanish and return, leaving sailors to wonder whether they had glimpsed a real vessel, a trick of light, or a silent traveler caught between worlds. In the vast expanse of the silent seas, certain vessels became known to sailors not for their cargo or design, but for their uncanny persistence. Records from the 18th and 19th centuries describe ships sighted multiple times by different crews across weeks, months, or even years. Each encounter was unique, yet the vessel retained its silent, drifting character. Witnesses often compared notes, noting similarities in appearance, rigging, or even the eerie calm surrounding the ship. Some logs suggested that the same ghost ship seemed to follow the natural currents, appearing in one location only to vanish and reappear elsewhere. For mariners, these repeated sightings blurred the line between myth and reality. The repetition gave ghost ships a quiet, almost sentient presence. They became familiar strangers, silent observers of the living world, moving slowly and deliberately through the waters. In the stillness of the silent seas, their persistence reinforced the sense that the ocean had its own memory, and that abandoned vessels, though empty of crew, could leave lasting impressions across both time and distance. One of the most mysterious aspects of ghost ships was their sudden disappearance. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries often described moments when a vessel, visible moments before on a calm horizon, seemed to dissolve into the sea or mist, leaving nothing but empty water behind. These vanishings could occur under various conditions: a shift in fog, a play of light on mirror-like waters, or simply the quiet drift of a hull beyond the observer's sight. Logs often mention the unease this created, as crews would watch intently, only to realize that the ship had quietly moved out of view, as if it had never existed. The effect was both unsettling and poetic. In the vast stillness of the silent seas, a ship could arrive, drift silently for hours or days, and then disappear without trace, leaving sailors to wonder whether they had glimpsed a real vessel, a trick of nature, or a ghostly presence beyond comprehension. These sudden vanishings reinforced the idea that ghost ships were not bound by ordinary rules of time or distance, and that the ocean held its secrets with patient, unyielding calm. Even when ghost ships appeared unmanned and still, subtle sounds sometimes betrayed their presence. Mariners in the 18th and 19th centuries recorded hearing the creak of wood, the faint slap of water against a hull, or the soft clatter of rigging moving in an unseen breeze. These noises were often distant, irregular, and almost imperceptible, yet they were enough to give life to a vessel that seemed otherwise empty. The calm of the silent seas amplified these faint sounds. Without the usual wind and wave, each creak or soft splash stood out sharply, creating a strange intimacy between the observer and the drifting ship. Sailors described a quiet sense of anticipation, as if the vessel itself were breathing slowly, carrying invisible stories across the water. These faint sounds became part of the lore of ghost ships. Even in total stillness, the ocean whispered of movement, history, and presence. In the serene expanse of the silent seas, a drifting vessel could feel simultaneously alive and abandoned, its silence punctuated only by the occasional, haunting echo of life long gone. Sailors on the silent seas occasionally noticed an eerie phenomenon: sails that fluttered softly or ropes that swayed, even when the air was perfectly still. Accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries described these subtle movements as almost imperceptible at first, yet unmistakable when observed over time. The cause was often a mystery. Some believed that small currents of air trapped between the hull and the rigging could create gentle motion. Others suggested that the ship itself seemed to possess a quiet energy, as if it remembered the hands that once guided it. Regardless of explanation, the sight of sails and ropes moving without wind added to the ghostly presence of the vessel. Observers described a mix of awe and unease. The ship appeared alive yet empty, drifting silently across glassy waters, its masts and lines swaying as if acknowledging an unseen rhythm. In the calm and reflective expanse of the silent seas, even the smallest motion took on profound significance, reinforcing the delicate balance between reality and imagination that made ghost ships so mesmerizing. In the quiet hours of dawn and dusk, ghost ships sometimes produced shadows that seemed almost alive. Mariners in the 18th and 19th centuries noted how the low sun stretched masts and hulls across calm waters, creating elongated, wavering forms that danced slowly on the ocean's surface. These shadows could appear distorted, as if the ship itself had grown taller or wider, its reflection bending and twisting in the gentle ripples. Sailors reported that even slight movements of the ship, or subtle changes in light, could make the shadow appear to move independently, giving the vessel an uncanny, almost spectral presence. The effect was hypnotic. In the stillness of the silent seas, shadows became a silent storyteller, hinting at the ship's past journeys and the lives once aboard. Observers often felt that the ship was more than wood and rope. It was a lingering presence, caught between light and water, reality and imagination. These shifting shadows, stretched by sunrise or sunset, deepened the quiet mystery of ghost ships, leaving sailors in awe of the ocean's subtle, magical illusions. Even in the silence of the open seas, ghost ships sometimes announced themselves in ways that were not seen, but smelled. Historical logs from the 18th and 19th centuries describe faint, strange odors drifting across calm waters as a vessel approached. A mixture of pitch, tar, and the faint, earthy scent of decaying wood or cargo. These subtle aromas were often the first hint that a ghost ship was near, arriving before the hull or sails became visible. Crew members would pause, noses alert, as the unusual scent drifted over the deck. The smells, delicate yet unmistakable, seemed to carry echoes of life that had once existed aboard the ship, long after the crew had departed. The presence of these faint aromas added another layer to the ghostly atmosphere. Sailors often remarked on the eerie quiet, combined with the subtle sense of human activity, once present but now gone. In the still expanse of the silent seas, a drifting ship could be sensed as much by the nose as by the eye, reinforcing the quiet, mysterious presence of these wandering vessels. Sailors on the silent seas frequently described a silence that seemed different from ordinary calm. Even in waters otherwise filled with the gentle lapping of waves or the distant calls of seabirds, the area around a ghost ship often felt hushed, as if the vessel absorbed sound itself. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries speak of this strange quiet. The creak of a nearby rigging would vanish, the splash of an oar would seem muffled, and even the wind's whisper appeared diminished near these drifting ships. Crew members often paused, noticing the absence of familiar noises, a subtle stillness that heightened the vessel's eerie presence. This unusual quiet made ghost ships feel suspended in time, isolated from the world around them. It was as if the ocean itself conspired to preserve their solitude, allowing them to drift without interruption. Observing sailors felt both awe and a gentle unease, reminded that in the vastness of the silent seas, silence could be as powerful as wind or current. an invisible cloak surrounding these drifting mysteries. Even in the silence that surrounded them, ghost ships sometimes seemed to announce their presence with subtle sounds. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries described hearing the faint ringing of bells, the soft clang of alarms, or the distant hum of equipment, coming from vessels where no crew remained. These sounds were never loud or constant, but they carried across the still waters in a way that made them impossible to ignore. Observers often paused, listening intently, unsure whether the noises were real, carried by the wind, or imagined in the quiet of the sea. The faint echoes lent the ships a sense of lingering life, as if they retained fragments of their former activity, quietly resonating across the silent seas. To those who heard them, the effect was haunting and mesmerizing. The ghostly chimes and alarms, subtle and ethereal, reinforced the feeling that these ships existed between worlds, neither fully present nor entirely absent. In the calm, reflective waters, a drifting vessel could carry the soft music of its past, a quiet reminder of lives once aboard and the ocean's mysterious capacity to preserve them. Even in the calm of the silent seas, sailors occasionally noted strange alterations in the weather around ghost ships. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe sudden mists rolling in, brief gusts of wind, or patches of fog appearing as a vessel drifted past, seemingly without cause. These subtle shifts could occur within moments, transforming a serene stretch of ocean into a place of quiet uncertainty. Experienced crews observed the phenomenon carefully, aware that even minor changes in wind or visibility could influence navigation, yet puzzled by the timing of these alterations, which often seemed linked only to the presence of the drifting ship. The effect deepened the mystery of ghost vessels. Calm seas became unpredictable, and ordinary observation no longer sufficed. Sailors learned to approach with caution, respecting the strange rhythm of the ocean and the subtle cues it offered. In the silent seas, these unexpected weather changes served as gentle reminders that ghost ships existed in a world partly governed by the known rules of nature, and partly by secrets beyond human understanding. In the vast, calm expanse of the silent seas, the surface of the water could become a perfect mirror, reflecting the night sky in remarkable clarity. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries observed ghost ships appearing almost ethereal, as their hulls and sails caught and reflected starlight and moonlight. The effect created a sense of doubled reality. A ship might seem suspended not only on the water, but also among the stars themselves, as if drifting through the heavens. Reflections shimmered with every subtle movement of the vessel, and in calm conditions, the distinction between sea and sky blurred. Observers often described the experience as mesmerizing and quietly disorienting. The ghost ship, mirrored against the cosmos, appeared both real and unreal, a bridge between the ocean below and the universe above. In the stillness of the silent seas, these reflections transformed ordinary vessels into drifting constellations, silent and beautiful, carrying the mysteries of the night along with them. In the silent seas, fog could transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries described drifting vessels that seemed to fade in and out of view as mist curled around their hulls and rigging. Under the right conditions, the sunlight, moonlight, or lantern glow would scatter through the fog, softening edges and making the ship appear ghostly, partially invisible against the water. Observers would see only fragments, a shadow of a mast, a glimmer of canvas, or the outline of a hull, disappearing and reappearing as they watched. These fleeting glimpses heightened the sense of mystery, making it impossible to determine the ship's true size, distance, or position. The phenomenon reinforced the ethereal reputation of ghost ships. In the stillness of the silent seas, fog and light worked together to create illusions that defied ordinary perception. To sailors, these partially invisible vessels were reminders that the ocean could play tricks on the senses, and that drifting ships carried stories not just of wood and rope, but of mystery, light, and the imagination of those who glimpsed them. Even when a vessel appeared empty, observers sometimes reported seeing fleeting shapes moving across the deck. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe shadows that seemed human, sailors at work, adjusting rigging, or pacing silently, only to vanish when approached or examined more closely. These impressions were subtle and easily dismissed as tricks of light, fog, or imagination. Yet in the quiet of the silent seas, they felt profoundly real. The shifting shadows gave the impression that the ship retained echoes of its past crew, a memory imprinted upon the very timbers and sails. Witnesses often experienced a mixture of awe and unease. The fleeting figures reminded them that even an empty ship could carry the presence of those who had sailed it, long after departure. In the calm, reflective waters, ghost ships became vessels not just of wood and rope, but of lingering life, subtle, ephemeral, and quietly haunting the minds of those who observed them. Sailors often observed ghost ships that seemed to hesitate in their course. Historical logs from the 18th and 19th centuries describe vessels drifting slowly, then coming to an almost imperceptible stop, as if lingering for a moment in the vast expanse of the silent seas. After hours, or sometimes days, the ship would continue its journey silently, carried by currents and tides, as though obeying an invisible rhythm. These pauses added to the vessel's otherworldly aura. Without crew, sails, or visible propulsion, the ship's subtle halts felt deliberate, almost contemplative. Observers could sense the quiet weight of history aboard these drifting hulks, the faint echo of lives once lived now suspended in motion, or stillness. The effect inspired reflection among sailors. In the calm, glassy waters, the ocean seemed to slow time itself, allowing these abandoned vessels to drift in a space between movement and stillness. Ghost ships pausing mid-journey became symbols of patience, memory, and the mysterious cadence of the sea, a reminder that not all journeys follow predictable paths. Sailors often marveled at ghost ships found near perilous reefs, rocks, or shoals, yet showing no sign of damage. Accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe vessels drifting silently over treacherous waters, their hulls untouched, masts upright, and sails largely preserved. The phenomenon seemed almost miraculous. While ordinary ships might founder or break apart when so close to danger, these abandoned vessels appeared to navigate invisible channels, guided perhaps by the currents themselves, or by the ocean's own quiet protection. Observers could only watch in awe as the ships passed safely, mere meters from potential disaster. These near misses reinforced the mysterious nature of ghost ships. They seemed not only abandoned, but also strangely favored by the sea, able to survive where others would fail. In the reflective, still waters of the silent seas, these intact vessels became symbols of resilience, drifting quietly through danger while carrying the echoes of their past lives silently onward. Observers on the silent seas occasionally noted an unusual phenomenon. Two or more ghost ships appearing along the same path, moving in apparent sequence. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries recorded how one drifting vessel might appear first, followed hours or days later by another, sometimes mirroring its route almost perfectly. The pattern was mysterious. Without captains or crew, the ships could not coordinate, yet currents, winds, and tides seemed to align in such a way that these vessels drifted in silent procession. From a distance, the effect was mesmerizing, as if the ocean itself choreographed a slow, deliberate parade of abandoned ships. This phenomenon inspired both awe and quiet contemplation. Multiple ghost ships following one another suggested that the ocean had rhythms of its own, capable of guiding vessels long after human presence had vanished. In the stillness of the silent seas, these drifting sequences reinforced the sense that ghost ships were part of a larger, unseen order. A silent fleet moving through time and water, carrying the echoes of forgotten lives. Sailors often noticed that ghost ships did not move entirely at random. Historical logs from the 18th and 19th centuries describe vessels that seemed to vanish from view, only to reappear hours later along the same general route. The timing often coincided with subtle shifts in tides or the pull of ocean currents. These disappearances were rarely abrupt. Instead, the ship would fade gradually, its hull and sails blending with mist, reflections, or low waves. Later, the vessel would drift back into sight, as if guided by some invisible hand of the sea. Observers could not predict when or where the ship would reappear, but patterns suggested a silent order beneath the apparent chaos. This alignment with natural rhythms made ghost ships seem almost purposeful. Even without crews, they moved in harmony with the ocean's slow, invisible forces. In the calm expanse of the silent seas, these vanishings and reappearances reinforced the quiet mystery of abandoned vessels, reminding sailors that the sea follows its own rules, beyond human understanding, and that ghost ships drift according to currents, tides, and perhaps secrets only the ocean knows. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries sometimes reported a strange hush when a ghost ship drifted nearby. The wind would die slightly, the waves would soften, and the usual sounds of the sea seemed muted. Crews on inhabited vessels felt as though the ocean itself had paused, allowing the abandoned ship to glide silently past without disturbance. This eerie calm heightened the sense of otherworldliness. No crew, no signals, no lanterns, yet the ghost ship moved with a subtle authority over its surroundings, its presence almost palpable. Sailors described the sensation as a gentle, almost reverent hush, as if the drifting vessel carried with it the weight of unseen eyes or lingering memories. Observers often recalled these moments long after the encounter. The silence became a quiet companion to the ghostly vision, reinforcing the notion that these ships existed in a space partially removed from ordinary time and sound. In the reflective waters of the silent seas, this calm left an impression both soothing and haunting, a reminder that the ocean can carry mysteries in its silence just as powerfully as in its storms. Even years after crews had departed, ghost ships sometimes drifted with their holds intact. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe vessels carrying barrels, crates, or personal belongings, untouched by human hands, but weathered by salt and sun. The cargo seemed almost frozen in time, a quiet reminder of the life that had once depended on it. These discoveries fascinated sailors. Occasionally, items were still arranged neatly, as if the crew had only stepped away for a moment. The presence of cargo lent ghost ships an air of mystery and melancholy, suggesting stories untold, voyages interrupted, goods lost to the sea, and lives left behind. Drifting through the calm waters of the silent seas, these vessels became moving museums, silent witnesses to past journeys. The cargo, preserved yet abandoned, reinforced the sense that ghost ships carried more than wood and sail. They bore fragments of human life, suspended quietly in motion, waiting to be discovered by those who happened upon them. Sailors exploring ghost ships sometimes found traces of those who had once lived aboard. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe cabins with neatly folded clothing, journals resting on tables, and small personal items left untouched, as if the crew had stepped away for a moment rather than disappeared entirely. These discoveries added a deeply human element to the mystery. The presence of personal effects reminded observers that ghost ships were more than drifting vessels. They were snapshots of lives, frozen in time. A child's toy, a sailor's jacket, or a carefully placed book became evidence of routines, habits, and moments now suspended in the quiet ocean. For those aboard nearby vessels, encountering such preserved spaces evoked awe, reflection, and a gentle melancholy. In the stillness of the silent seas, these cabins were private, floating sanctuaries of memory, offering a quiet connection between the living and the unseen, abandoned lives of ghost ships. Among the cabins and holds of ghost ships, sailors occasionally discovered written messages, notes, logs, or hastily scrawled letters. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe these messages as quiet testimonies of the crew's final moments, sometimes mundane, sometimes cryptic, and occasionally filled with warnings or reflections. These writings offered a glimpse into the human side of abandonment. A note could describe a course change, a difficult decision, or simply record the day's weather, while another might express hope, fear, or a farewell. In the calm stillness of the silent seas, these messages seemed to carry the voices of those no longer present, bridging the gap between the living and the drifting vessels. For sailors who found them, the experience was both moving and mysterious. A simple sheet of paper could transform an ordinary abandoned ship into a narrative, a story suspended on the water, waiting to be read. Ghost ships, through these written traces, became vessels of memory and communication, silently carrying human presence across the quiet, endless expanse of the sea. Among the personal effects preserved in ghost ships, sailors occasionally discovered journals or diaries that detailed long journeys across the seas. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe entries chronicling daily life aboard the vessel, weather patterns, encounters with other ships, and reflections of the crew. Reading these writings, observers felt a unique connection to those who had vanished. Every page revealed routine and adventure, caution and hope, allowing the silent ship to speak across time. The journal could recount a successful day at sea, a frightening storm, or a crew member's quiet thoughts in the night, preserving human presence long after departure. These discoveries added depth to the ghost ship story. The vessel was no longer just a drifting hull. It became a moving archive of life, memory, and experience. In the stillness of the silent seas, journals and diaries transformed abandoned ships into storytellers, carrying fragments of lives across waters both calm and mysterious. Even long after abandonment, certain ghost ships retained tools of navigation, compasses, sextants, charts, and logbooks, sometimes remarkably well preserved. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries noted that these instruments, resting quietly on desks or in lockers, seemed untouched by human hands, yet remained functional, ready for use as if the crew had only stepped away for a moment. The presence of these instruments added a practical layer to the mystery. A compass pointing steadily north, a chart marked with careful notes, or a sextant left on a windowsill suggested order and intention amid the quiet drift. Observers often felt the ship itself held a memory of its past, as though the tools carried the wisdom and direction of the crew long after they had gone. In the calm expanse of the silent seas, such discoveries reinforced the sense that ghost ships were more than empty hulls. They were vessels of history, preserved knowledge, and silent guidance, drifting in patience across waters that seemed to suspend both time and motion. Even in regions where shipping lanes were busy, sailors observed ghost ships gliding silently among other vessels without incident. Historical records from the 18th and 19th centuries describe moments when drifting ships passed dangerously close to active vessels, yet no contact occurred. Hulls remained intact, sails undamaged, and the drifting continued as if guided by some unseen hand. This phenomenon seemed almost impossible. Without crews to steer, adjust sails, or respond to changing conditions, ordinary vessels would surely have collided. Yet ghost ships maintained a quiet course, weaving through other traffic with uncanny precision. Observers often attributed it to the slow and deliberate pace of currents, but the effect still carried a sense of mystery, as though the ocean itself ensured the ship's safe passage. For sailors witnessing these encounters, the experience was both awe-inspiring and humbling. In the calm and reflective waters of the silent seas, ghost ships moved like patient guardians, avoiding danger and disruption, reinforcing the idea that even in abandonment, these vessels maintained a presence both purposeful and quietly miraculous. Sailors on the silent seas occasionally witnessed ghost ships appearing amid turbulent weather, with towering waves and fierce winds battering the waters. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe vessels calmly drifting through storms, their masts upright, sails intact, and hulls undisturbed, as if the tempest passed around them rather than over them. These observations were both perplexing and awe-inspiring. Ordinary ships in similar conditions would struggle, take on water, or even founder, yet these abandoned vessels moved steadily, almost untouched by the fury of nature. The calm persistence of the ship, juxtaposed with the chaos around it, added to the impression that ghost ships were guided by forces beyond human understanding. For those who saw them, the effect was quiet and profound. In the vast expanse of the silent seas, these drifting vessels seemed to exist in a space where ordinary rules of danger and survival did not fully apply. A reminder that the ocean, in its stillness or its storms, could carry mysteries that defied explanation. Sailors on the silent seas sometimes noticed that the calm after a ghost ship's passage was unlike any ordinary lull. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe waters that seemed to pause. Waves softened, wind diminished, and even distant sounds were muted. It was as though the vessel carried a pocket of silence with it, leaving the surrounding sea momentarily suspended. Observers often felt a quiet reverence. The eerie stillness made the ship's passage feel almost ceremonial, a slow, deliberate motion through chaos that no other vessel could replicate. Crews would watch the fading hull, noticing that the turbulence seemed to ease only after the ghost ship had drifted past, as if it had smoothed the waters behind it. This phenomenon reinforced the mystical reputation of ghost ships. In the vast, reflective expanse of the silent seas, these vessels carried not just wood and canvas, but a sense of order, calm, and subtle power. The ocean seemed to acknowledge their presence, allowing silence and serenity to follow in their wake, further deepening the quiet mystery surrounding these drifting ships. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries occasionally observed ghost ships moving across the silent seas under a sky filled with stars, noticing a strange harmony between vessel and cosmos. Hulls and masts often appeared to trace subtle lines pointing toward prominent celestial bodies, the North Star, bright planets, or the glowing moon. The effect was mesmerizing. In the quiet of night, with no wind or crew to direct them, the ships seemed guided by forces beyond ordinary navigation. Observers described feeling a gentle sense of order, as if the universe itself were marking a path for the drifting vessels. The alignment enhanced the ethereal quality of these ships, making them appear almost celestial, suspended between sea and sky. This celestial connection deepened the mystery of ghost ships. It suggested that their drift was not purely random, but part of a larger cosmic rhythm. In the still waters of the silent seas, a ship could glide beneath constellations, carrying with it both human history and an uncanny link to the heavens above. In the quiet of the silent seas, ghost ships often seemed to shimmer under the moon's gentle glow. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries described sails that caught the lunar light in strange, almost magical ways, brightening suddenly, glowing softly, or reflecting silvery streaks across calm waters. These reflections could make a ship appear larger, taller, or more ethereal than it actually was. Observers often felt as though the vessel were floating between worlds, suspended between water and sky. The subtle interplay of moonlight, shadow, and movement gave the impression that the ship was alive in its own quiet way, a silent traveler guided by the light above. The glowing sails deepened the sense of mystery. In the stillness of the ocean at night, the ghost ship became more than a drifting hull. It became a luminous presence, a gentle reminder that even abandoned vessels could hold beauty, wonder, and a quiet magic softly carried across the silent seas. Sailors on the silent seas often noted that a ghost ship could appear enormous from one vantage point, yet diminish almost to a miniature silhouette from another. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries attribute this to the way light, mist, and reflection interacted with the calm waters, creating optical illusions that distorted size and distance. A vessel drifting under the low sun or moonlight might seem to tower over the horizon, while the same ship seen from a different angle could appear fragile and distant, barely disturbing the glassy surface of the sea. These shifting perceptions made it difficult to judge a ship's true scale, heightening its spectral presence. For observers, this illusion was both mesmerizing and slightly disorienting. Ghost ships seemed to play with perspective, reminding sailors that the silent seas were as much a realm of perception and imagination as of water and wood. In this delicate interplay of light and distance, each vessel became a moving enigma, a drifting mystery whose size and significance could change with every glance. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries sometimes reported seeing 2 or more ghost ships drifting in proximity, and they noticed a peculiar effect. The surrounding waters became unusually still. Waves softened, winds seemed to pause, and even the usual creaking of rigging on nearby vessels seemed muted. This eerie calm created an almost ceremonial atmosphere. Observers described the scene as a quiet procession, with the drifting ships moving in harmony, untouched by chaos, storms, or the normal movements of the ocean. The effect enhanced the otherworldly aura of the vessels, making them seem like deliberate, almost sentient travelers gliding across a suspended sea. For those witnessing it, the calm was both mesmerizing and contemplative. It reinforced the idea that ghost ships were governed by forces beyond human understanding, drifting not merely as abandoned hulls, but as silent, purposeful entities, carrying with them a quiet magic across the expansive waters of the silent seas. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries sometimes observed that ghost ships behaved differently depending on the moon's cycle. On nights of a full moon, vessels would glide gracefully across the waters, their sails illuminated, reflecting light in an almost ceremonial manner. During the new moon, the same ships often seemed to vanish into darkness, becoming difficult to spot even in calm seas. This pattern led observers to wonder if the ocean itself guided these vessels according to celestial rhythms. Currents, tides, and moonlight appeared to influence the drift, giving ghost ships a subtle, almost mystical connection to the lunar cycle. Sailors often felt that the ships were alive to the tides of the moon, moving in harmony with forces far beyond human control. The effect was quietly mesmerizing. In the serene waters of the silent seas, moonlight seemed to orchestrate the journey of these drifting vessels, creating a rhythm both gentle and mysterious. Ghost ships became not only echoes of human voyages, but also companions of the natural celestial cycles, reminding sailors of the deep, unseen connections between sea, sky, and the passing of time. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries described ghost ships drifting on nights when the moon shone brightly, surrounded by water so calm and clear it seemed almost unnatural. Waves flattened, ripples disappeared, and the ocean reflected both ship and sky with remarkable precision. This unusual stillness made the vessels appear suspended, floating in a perfect mirror of the night. Observers could see the faint outlines of hulls and rigging, reflected in the water, as if the ship existed simultaneously above and below the surface. The effect was mesmerizing, giving ghost ships an ethereal quality that ordinary vessels never possessed. Sailors often felt a quiet awe, noticing how the luminous water amplified the presence of the drifting ship. In the silent seas, this moonlit clarity created a gentle, meditative atmosphere. Ghost ships, gliding through still and reflective waters, seemed less like abandoned vessels and more like living memories, carrying the calm and mystery of the ocean itself. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries occasionally observed vessels gliding through the silent seas in ways that defied ordinary physics. Hulls moved smoothly even when the air was still and the water perfectly calm, as if propelled by invisible forces rather than wind or tide. This unusual motion deepened the mystery surrounding these ships. Observers could see sails slack or rigging unmoved, yet the vessel continued its path steadily, sometimes following a slow, deliberate route that appeared intentional. Many sailors found this both mesmerizing and quietly unsettling, as if the ocean itself had entrusted the ship with a secret journey. The effect reinforced the ethereal nature of ghost ships. In the calm, reflective waters, a vessel that drifted independently of natural forces became more than a floating object. It became a presence, a quiet reminder that the silent seas held phenomena beyond explanation. For those watching, the sight offered a serene but haunting meditation on movement, stillness, and the invisible rhythms of the ocean. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries occasionally reported seeing ghost ships in waters where no ordinary vessel was expected. These drifting ships appeared far from established trade lanes or familiar coastal routes, often in stretches of open sea so remote that few had sailed there before. The unexpected locations added to the vessel's mysterious reputation. Observers could find themselves suddenly confronted by a drifting ship, its hull and sails unmistakable, yet entirely out of place. There was no explanation. No charts marked its presence, no currents could account for its path, and no recent vessels had traveled nearby. These encounters suggested that ghost ships were not bound by the same rules as ordinary maritime traffic. In the still, quiet expanse of the silent seas, the sudden appearance of a vessel far from any known route reinforced the feeling that these ships moved according to a secret rhythm of the ocean, guided by forces invisible to human eyes and beyond the understanding of even the most experienced sailors. On rare occasions, sailors reported witnessing multiple ghost ships spread across the silent seas in arrangements that seemed far from random. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe vessels positioned in wide arcs, gentle lines, or loose circles, as if placed intentionally upon the water's surface. These formations were not rigid or precise, yet they carried a sense of quiet order. The ships drifted slowly, maintaining their relative distances for hours or even days. Observers found it difficult to explain how abandoned vessels, each guided only by wind and tide, could remain aligned without colliding or dispersing. For those who witnessed these scenes, the effect was deeply contemplative. The patterned drift suggested that the ocean itself might be arranging the vessels, shaping their movement with subtle forces beneath the surface. In the stillness of the silent seas, these quiet formations transformed ghost ships into symbols of harmony, patience, and mystery, silent participants in a design far larger than any single voyage. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries often remarked on how long certain ghost ships continued to drift without sinking or breaking apart. Despite exposure to sun, salt, storms, and time, these vessels remained afloat for months, sometimes even years, far beyond what was considered possible for abandoned ships. Their hulls stayed intact, their masts standing, and their decks surprisingly preserved. While ordinary ships quickly succumbed to rot or damage once left unattended, ghost ships seemed protected by the sea itself. Observers could only speculate that calm waters, favorable currents, or exceptional craftsmanship played a role in their endurance. This prolonged survival added to the quiet wonder surrounding ghost ships. In the stillness of the silent seas, these vessels felt suspended between past and present, neither fully lost nor truly active. Their continued presence became a meditation on time itself, how the ocean can both erase and preserve, allowing certain ships to drift gently onward long after their journeys were meant to end. Sailors who boarded ghost ships were sometimes puzzled to find evidence that suggested care and upkeep. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe ropes neatly coiled, decks relatively clean, and sails folded or secured in ways that implied deliberate attention rather than neglect. These details were subtle, yet unsettling. Without a crew, no one should have been present to tend the ship, and yet the vessel did not always reflect the chaos of abandonment. The impression was not of disorder, but of quiet preservation, as if time itself had slowed aboard the drifting hull. For observers, this raised gentle questions rather than fear. Perhaps calm seas and favorable weather had preserved the ship naturally, or perhaps the human mind sought patterns where none truly existed. In the stillness of the silent seas, these maintained vessels became symbols of continuity. Ships that carried the appearance of care even in solitude, drifting peacefully with an air of quiet dignity. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries occasionally noted small, but curious changes when they neared a ghost ship. A drifting vessel might alter its course slightly, rotate with the swell, or shift position just enough to create the impression of awareness. These movements were gentle and slow, never sudden, yet noticeable to experienced eyes. Such responses were often attributed to changes in water displacement, wind shadows, or passing currents. Still, the timing felt unusual. The ship's motion seemed to coincide precisely with the approach of another vessel, as though the presence of life nearby had stirred something silent and dormant within the drifting hull. For those witnessing these moments, the effect was quietly profound. Ghost ships appeared not entirely indifferent to the world around them. In the calm waters of the silent seas, these subtle interactions suggested a delicate connection between abandoned vessels and the living ocean, one that encouraged reflection rather than fear, and deepened the gentle mystery of ships drifting without crew, yet not entirely alone. Sailors along familiar shores occasionally reported ghost ships drifting parallel to the coastline, maintaining a steady distance from land. Historical accounts from the 18th and 19th centuries describe vessels moving calmly alongside cliffs, beaches, or rocky headlands, yet never striking reefs or grounding themselves on shore. This behavior was puzzling. Without crews to steer or adjust course, ordinary ships would eventually drift into danger. Ghost ships, however, seemed to trace the contours of the land with quiet precision, guided perhaps by coastal currents or subtle changes in wind and tide. To observers, the motion felt deliberate, as though the vessel remembered the routes it once sailed. In the stillness of the silent seas, these coastal journeys inspired reflection. The ships appeared to know where they were, lingering near the edges of land without ever fully returning. Drifting peacefully between sea and shore, ghost ships became symbols of memory and restraint, vessels that approached home, yet remained forever at a gentle distance. Sailors in the 18th and 19th centuries were often surprised by the condition of certain ghost ships. Despite prolonged exposure to harsh sunlight, salt spray, and open air, some vessels showed far less wear than expected. Paint remained visible, wood appeared solid, and rigging held together long after abandonment. Under ordinary circumstances, the sea quickly claims unattended ships. Salt corrodes metal, sun dries and cracks wood, and storms hasten decay. Yet these ghost ships seemed preserved by the very elements meant to erode them. Observers could only speculate whether exceptional craftsmanship, gentle conditions, or simple fortune played a role in their survival. This quiet preservation added to the meditative nature of ghost ships. In the calm expanses of the silent seas, these vessels felt suspended in time, neither aging nor renewing, simply existing. Their unchanged appearance invited sailors to reflect on the ocean's dual nature, capable of destruction, yet equally able to preserve, allowing certain ships to drift onward as silent witnesses to forgotten journeys. At the quiet edges of the day, when night slowly gives way to light, or when evening gently settles in, ghost ships were sometimes seen drifting into view. As fog thinned at dawn, a hull might slowly take shape, its sails catching the first pale glow of morning. At dusk, the opposite occurred. A vessel would appear briefly in fading light, only to dissolve again into mist and shadow. These appearances felt carefully timed, as though the ships belonged to moments of transition rather than to full daylight or complete darkness. The soft light of sunrise and sunset blurred boundaries, making it difficult to tell where sea, sky, and vessel truly began or ended. The ship seemed less like a physical object and more like a passing memory. For those who witnessed such moments, the experience was deeply calming and reflective. In the stillness of the silent seas, dawn and dusk became gateways, brief openings where ghost ships revealed themselves before slipping quietly away. Their presence lingered not on the water, but in the mind, long after the fog returned and the horizon grew empty once more. As quietly as they appeared, some ghost ships departed just as gently. Observers described vessels drifting away into fog or low mist, their outlines softening until hull, sails, and mast gradually dissolved into the surrounding air. Unlike ordinary ships, these vessels left no visible wake behind them, as if the sea itself refused to acknowledge their passage. This absence of disturbance was striking. Normally, even the slowest ship would crease the water, leaving ripples or foam to mark its path. Ghost ships, however, slipped away without a trace, the surface of the ocean smoothing itself almost immediately. The water returned to stillness, reflecting sky and fog as though nothing had ever passed through. For those watching, the moment felt deeply peaceful. In the silent seas, the lack of a wake suggested that ghost ships belonged to a quieter layer of existence, present, yet barely touching the world around them. Their gentle disappearance left behind only calm water and a lingering sense of wonder, as if the sea itself had quietly closed the door after their passing. At times, the most unsettling quality of a ghost ship was not what could be seen, but what could not be heard. As vessels drifted nearer, observers noticed an absence of sound. No creaking wood, no flapping canvas, no splash of water against the hull. The ship moved through the silent seas in near-perfect quiet. Ordinary ships are never truly silent. Even in calm conditions, ropes shift, planks groan, and waves whisper against the bow. Ghost ships, however, seemed wrapped in stillness. Sailors often described the silence as soft rather than threatening, as though the vessel carried its own pocket of calm, gently muting the sounds of the ocean around it. This quiet presence left a lasting impression. In the vast openness of the sea, where sound usually travels far, the silence felt deliberate and profound. Ghost ships, drifting without noise, became symbols of peaceful detachment, moving through the world without disturbance, reminding those who watch that the deepest mysteries of the ocean often reveal themselves not through sound, but through silence. Even when equipped like ordinary vessels, some ghost ships gave no sound at all. Bells hung from masts, horns rested on decks, and signal devices sat in place, yet they never rang, clanged, or echoed across the water. Sailors noted this absence in both calm and choppy seas, as if the instruments themselves had forgotten their purpose. The silence was eerie but gentle. Without the usual creaks, clangs, or shouts, the ship moved like a soft shadow over the ocean. Observers often found themselves watching more closely, eyes drawn to the subtle play of light and shadow, noticing every shifting sail or swaying rope in a world that felt suspended between reality and dream. This quiet reinforced the ghostly nature of these vessels. In the silent seas, ships with unmoving bells or unused signals appeared less like abandoned tools and more like silent storytellers, floating reminders of human presence, now muted, leaving only the visual poetry of drifting wood, canvas, and reflection. Occasionally, observers noticed ghost ships moving slowly in a direction contrary to the wind. Sails hung slack, rigging remained still, yet the hull continued its journey with remarkable steadiness. Ordinary vessels would struggle in such conditions, flapping and straining against the gusts, but ghost ships seemed unaffected. This phenomenon deepened their mysterious aura. The ships drifted smoothly, almost as if the ocean itself provided a protective cushion, counteracting the natural forces that might otherwise push or tear them apart. Sailors watching from nearby vessels often felt a sense of awe and quiet reflection, witnessing motion that defied expectation yet caused no alarm. In the calm expanse of the silent seas, these counterwind journeys reinforced the idea that ghost ships were not ordinary. They existed in a subtle harmony with the ocean, moving in ways that were both graceful and inexplicable, a silent reminder that the sea holds mysteries far beyond human understanding. On certain mornings or clear nights, sailors observed ghost ships glowing softly under the light of sun or moon. Sunlight could catch the polished wooden sails, creating gleaming highlights that danced across the calm waters. By moonlight, the same vessels sometimes appeared to shimmer with a silvery radiance, as if illuminated from within. These reflections were more than ordinary glints. They seemed unusually vivid, almost dreamlike, emphasizing the outlines of masts, the sweep of sails, and the gentle sway of rigging. Observers often described the effect as hypnotic, drawing attention to the silent movement of the ship and the stillness of the surrounding ocean. In the quiet expanse of the silent seas, these luminous reflections heightened the ghostly presence of the vessels. They reminded sailors that light and water could transform ordinary objects into visions, giving ghost ships an ethereal quality that blurred the boundary between reality and imagination. In that soft glow, the ocean felt both calm and alive, carrying memories and mysteries across its reflective surface. There were moments when a drifting vessel appeared fully illuminated, yet no shadow fell upon the water. Sailors noted that despite the bright sun and clear skies, the ship seemed suspended in light, its hull, masts, and sails glowing but leaving no trace on the rippling surface below. This strange absence added to the otherworldly impression of ghost ships. Observers described the effect as unsettling yet calm, a gentle reminder that these vessels existed slightly apart from ordinary experience. The lack of shadow made the ship appear weightless, almost like a memory floating across the ocean rather than a physical object subject to normal rules of light and physics. In the vast and silent expanse of the sea, such moments encouraged quiet reflection. The drifting, shadowless ship became a meditation on presence and absence, reality and illusion. In the stillness of the silent seas, it seemed that ghost ships occupied a liminal space, visible yet untethered, carrying stories and histories in a world that felt both real and impossibly soft. At times, a drifting vessel would appear suspended, hovering gently above the ocean's surface. The wind might ripple nearby waves, and tides could shift the surrounding waters, yet the ship itself barely moved. Sailors often watched in quiet wonder, noting that rigging swayed lightly, sails hung slack, and the hull seemed to float without any forward motion at all. This stillness was more than unusual. It was meditative. A ship paused in place became a moving moment of calm, a quiet presence in an otherwise dynamic world. Observers described the effect as peaceful, almost as if the vessel were taking a breath before continuing its journey. In the reflective expanse of the silent seas, these frozen moments encouraged contemplation. Ghost ships drifting without motion reminded sailors that not every voyage is about speed or direction. Sometimes, the quietest journeys are the ones that leave the deepest impression, as vessels float in stillness, carrying the soft weight of memory and mystery across calm waters. In the quiet hours when fog settled over the silent seas, or twilight softened the horizon, drifting vessels occasionally appeared to emit a subtle glow. Sailors described this light as soft and diffuse, enough to outline masts, hulls, and sails without revealing the ship in full detail. The glow created an almost dreamlike presence, as if the vessel carried its own gentle illumination, separate from sun, moon, or stars. Observers often felt a serene curiosity, drawn to the quiet light, noting how it emphasized movement while maintaining a calm, almost hypnotic rhythm. This faint luminescence reinforced the ethereal nature of ghost ships. In the still waters, the vessels became floating points of reflection, guiding the eye across foggy expanses or dim horizons. They were reminders that the ocean holds secrets visible only to patient observation, and that even abandoned ships can carry a quiet radiance, softly threading mystery through calm and shadow. During distant storms, sailors sometimes noticed ghost ships reflecting sudden flashes of lightning or the glow of tempestuous clouds. The vessels shimmered under these brief illuminations, their masts and hulls highlighted like polished mirrors, yet they remained untouched by the violent energy around them. Ordinary ships would sway, groan, or even suffer damage in such conditions, but ghost ships appeared impervious. The reflections accentuated their presence, creating a surreal scene of a vessel outlined in light, floating silently amid the chaos. Observers often described a sense of calm awe, noticing the contrast between the storm's violence and the ship's serene stability. In the vast, restless waters of the silent seas, these reflective moments reinforce the impression that ghost ships belong to a different rhythm than ordinary vessels. They seem to exist in a quiet pocket of safety, carrying memories and stories without disturbance, moving through both calm and storm with a grace that defied explanation. Observers occasionally noticed a drifting ship subtly matching the movements of a vessel passing nearby. If a ship rocked with the swell or adjusted its sails, the ghost ship would seem to respond in kind, mirroring the motion almost exactly, yet remaining perfectly silent and unmanned. This quiet mimicry created an uncanny sense of connection. While currents and waves might influence multiple ships, the precision of the reflection often felt deliberate, as though the ghost vessel was aware of its surroundings without human intervention. Sailors described the effect as mesmerizing, a delicate dance across the ocean that emphasized both movement and stillness. In the reflective calm of the silent seas, these mirrored motions deepened the aura of mystery. Ghost ships were not simply drifting objects. They appeared alive in subtle ways, responding to the world around them without touching it, reminding observers that the ocean can carry more than water and wind, but also memory, reflection, and quiet companionship. From afar, Sailors sometimes glimpsed a vessel gliding across the horizon, only to find that, moments later, it had seemingly disappeared. No fog, no hidden cove, and no obstruction could account for its sudden absence. Yet hours or even days later, the same ship would reappear, drifting quietly as if it had never left. This vanishing reinforced the ethereal nature of ghost ships. The ocean seemed to allow these vessels to exist intermittently, revealing them at moments when the observer's attention might be drawn, then concealing them as though the sea itself controlled their presence. It was as if the ships moved through layers of reality, sometimes visible, sometimes hidden, yet always present in a subtle way. For sailors witnessing these phenomena, the effect was strangely comforting. The repeated appearance and disappearance suggested patience, continuity, and gentle mystery. In the expansive silent seas, ghost ships became reminders that not all movement is immediate or obvious. Some journeys unfold in quiet cycles, witnessed only by those willing to observe with care. Upon closer inspection, sailors sometimes noticed that the carved figureheads on ghost ships appeared unusually lifelike. Positioned at the prow, these sculptures often seemed to stare straight ahead, as though watching the water and horizon with quiet attention. Even after years of drift, paint and detail often remained intact, preserving the impression of an attentive presence. The effect was subtle yet profound. The figurehead's gaze created a sense of companionship for those observing from nearby vessels, as though the ship itself possessed awareness or a gentle consciousness. Its silent watchfulness added to the meditative aura of the drifting vessel, reinforcing the idea that ghost ships carried traces of human care and artistry, even in the absence of a crew. In the still expanse of the silent seas, these attentive figureheads became symbols of vigilance and memory. They reminded sailors that each vessel had once been tended, crafted, and given personality, allowing the ship to carry both its physical structure and the quiet echoes of those who had launched it across the ocean long ago. In the early hours of dawn or the quiet moments of dusk, ghost ships sometimes appeared bathed in colors that seemed brighter or more vivid than ordinary light could create. Sails glowed with soft pinks, oranges, or golds, while hulls shimmered with unexpected reds or purples, as if the vessels themselves absorbed and reflected the sky's changing palette. Observers often described the effect as almost painterly, like a fleeting work of art drifting across the water. The play of light and color emphasized the calm motion of the ship, creating a meditative rhythm that was as visual as it was emotional. Even seasoned sailors could not explain why the vessels reflected sunlight in such extraordinary ways, adding to the quiet mystery of their presence. In the still waters of the silent seas, these unusual reflections became a source of gentle wonder. Ghost ships, gliding through morning or evening light, reminded onlookers that the ocean was both a mirror and a canvas, carrying not just vessels, but color, memory, and the fleeting beauty of time itself. In remote areas of the silent seas, sailors occasionally observed vessels circling small, uninhabited islands. Ghost ships moved deliberately, tracing the coastline with quiet patience, turning gently to follow coves, cliffs, or sandy shores. There was no crew to guide them, yet their motion suggested a careful, almost curious navigation of the landscape. The scene often appeared meditative. The ship's slow drift emphasized the stillness of the water, the gentle rise and fall of tides, and the quiet solitude of the islands themselves. Observers sometimes felt as though the vessel were taking its time, studying the land in the absence of human eyes, leaving only the impression of deliberate attention behind. In the calm expanse of the silent seas, these moments encouraged reflection. Ghost ships circling islands became symbols of exploration without urgency, of journeys without purpose beyond presence. They reminded sailors that the ocean held space for stillness and observation, and that even abandoned vessels could appear alive in their quiet, drifting exploration. In treacherous waters where hidden reefs or jagged rocks threatened ordinary vessels, ghost ships were often observed gliding safely past. Hulls remained intact, masts upright, and decks undisturbed, as if the ship instinctively knew where danger lay. There was no crew to steer, yet collisions seemed impossible. Observers described a sense of quiet wonder as they watched. The vessel moved with gentle precision, avoiding obstacles without haste or effort. It was almost as if an unseen hand guided the ship, nudging it along a path dictated by some subtle, invisible knowledge of the sea. In the calm, reflective expanse of the silent seas, these near-miraculous passages reinforced the ethereal presence of ghost ships. They seemed to exist in harmony with both water and danger, carrying an air of gentle intelligence. For sailors, watching such careful navigation inspired quiet awe, a reminder that even in apparent abandonment, the ocean and its drifting vessels could hold patterns and purpose beyond human understanding. Observers sometimes noticed a drifting vessel moving along a familiar route, only to circle back and follow the same course again. Over hours or days, the ship appeared to repeat its path, hugging a coastline, tracing a channel, or drifting along a stretch of open water, as though remembering a journey long past. This repetition was subtle, yet striking. The motions were slow and deliberate, never rushed, giving the impression that the ship carried memory within its timbers and sails. Observers often felt a sense of quiet reflection, watching the vessel move in loops, tracing invisible maps drawn by sailors of the past. In the vast silent seas, these repeated journeys suggested a timeless rhythm. Ghost ships became living echoes of history, floating reminders that voyages could continue even after crews were gone. Watching them retrace their paths encouraged patience and contemplation, allowing sailors to imagine the stories, routes, and experiences these vessels might carry silently across the water. On quiet days, sailors sometimes observed ghost ships gliding along the water as if guided by invisible lines. Hulls, masts, and sails seemed to line up precisely with the horizon or the outline of distant islands and cliffs, creating a subtle but mesmerizing symmetry. The effect was calming and almost hypnotic. The alignment made the ship appear as a natural part of the landscape, floating between sky and sea in perfect proportion. Observers often noted that the motion was deliberate yet gentle, enhancing the serene quality of the silent seas. This alignment suggested that ghost ships followed rhythms beyond ordinary navigation. Whether influenced by currents, tides, or some unseen force, the vessels moved with quiet intention, as though aware of the broader environment around them. In that still, reflective expanse, a ship drifting in harmony with the horizon became a meditation on balance, distance, and the subtle poetry of the ocean itself. In the vast stretches of the silent seas, there were times when a lone vessel would appear, far from trade routes, fishing boats, or naval traffic. These ghost ships moved with quiet grace, surrounded only by the endless expanse of water and sky. The solitude was profound. Without other ships nearby, every subtle sway of the hull, every soft reflection of sails in the calm water, became more noticeable. Observers often described a meditative sense of space and time, as if the ship existed in a world apart, untouched by ordinary human activity. This isolation emphasized the ethereal nature of ghost ships. They seemed less like abandoned vessels and more like sentinels of the open sea, drifting in their own rhythm. In the silent expanse, far from human presence, the lone ghost ship became a symbol of quiet endurance, gentle mystery, and the deep, unhurried flow of the ocean itself. Observers occasionally noticed delicate ripples and subtle trails forming in the water around drifting ghost ships. Unlike ordinary wakes, these patterns were soft, almost imperceptible, gently twisting and shifting as if the ship's passage stirred the sea in unusual ways. The effect was quietly mesmerizing. The patterns seemed to move in harmony with the ship's motion, following its course without disturbing the calm surface. Sailors described a sense of watching something alive yet intangible, a visual echo of the vessel's journey across the silent seas. In the still expanse of the ocean, these faint designs reinforced the mystical quality of ghost ships. They suggested that even the water itself responded differently to these vessels, carrying not just their physical presence, but a gentle, shifting signature. For those observing, the effect encouraged calm reflection, reminding them that the quietest traces can sometimes be the most profound. In the calm waters of the silent seas, sailors sometimes noticed that fish, seabirds, and even larger marine creatures behaved as though a ghost ship weren't there at all. Schools of fish continued swimming undisturbed beneath the hull, and birds circled overhead without taking flight. This gentle interaction, or rather, the lack of interaction, added to the vessel's ethereal presence. Ordinary ships, even in calm seas, create vibrations, ripples, and sound that ripple through the water, alerting nearby wildlife. Ghost ships, however, moved as if gliding through a separate, quieter layer of the ocean, their passage leaving the natural world serene and unchanged. For observers, the effect was both calming and mysterious. In the silent, reflective expanse of the ocean, a ghost ship drifting without disturbing life became a symbol of harmony. It suggested that these vessels existed in a subtle balance with their surroundings, floating gently, and reminding sailors of the soft, patient rhythms of the sea. On certain days, sailors observed vessels moving smoothly along the water, carried by currents in ways that appeared deliberate. Ghost ships sometimes drifted in directions that seemed contrary to wind or tide, yet their motion was steady and controlled, as if the sea itself guided them. The alignment with currents created a quiet harmony. Observers often noticed how the ship moved in concert with gentle eddies or deeper flows, following paths that seemed intentional without human intervention. The motion was soft and unhurried, emphasizing the reflective stillness of the surrounding water. In the expanse of the silent seas, these currents suggested that ghost ships existed in a delicate balance with natural forces. Their journeys reminded sailors that movement need not be hurried to be meaningful, and that even a vessel left unmanned could drift with purpose, silently tracing the hidden rhythms of the ocean. When night fell and the sky filled with stars, a drifting ghost ship sometimes appeared to emit a soft, silvery glow. Sailors described the light as subtle, almost like moonlight captured within the wooden sails, highlighting the vessel against the dark sea without revealing every detail. The faint illumination lent the ship an ethereal presence. Observers often felt a sense of calm wonder, noting how the glow emphasized gentle movements. The sway of masts, the ripple of sails, while leaving the surrounding waters serene and untouched. It was as if the vessel carried its own quiet starlight, drifting silently across the ocean. In the still, reflective expanse of the silent seas, these glowing ships became symbols of gentle mystery. They reminded sailors that light and presence can exist softly, without noise or urgency, and that even abandoned vessels could hold a subtle, otherworldly beauty under the quiet canopy of the night sky. On clear nights, observers sometimes noticed drifting vessels moving in ways that echoed the arrangement of stars above. The ship's course, when traced across the water, seemed to follow subtle lines connecting constellations, or to mirror the angle of the moon's path across the sky. This quiet alignment added to the sense of otherworldliness. Sailors described a feeling of harmony between sea and sky, as if the vessel were guided by celestial rhythms rather than wind or tide. The effect was soft and mesmerizing, encouraging reflection on the connections between the natural world and the mysteries it holds. In the serene expanse of the silent seas, these ships became reminders that movement and placement could carry meaning beyond the immediate or visible. Ghost ships aligned with the heavens offered a gentle meditation on the universe, the ocean, and the hidden threads that connect them, drifting slowly under the stars as if following a cosmic choreography. On nights when the moon shifted from crescent to full, sailors sometimes observed a ghost ship subtly changing its appearance in response. Light glinted differently on the hull, shadows stretched or softened across the deck, and sails caught the lunar glow in ways that echoed the moon's current phase. These delicate reflections gave the vessels an almost living quality. Observers often felt a quiet awe, noticing how the ship's form seemed to participate in the night's rhythm. The gentle changes reinforced the idea that ghost ships were intertwined with natural cycles, floating in harmony with celestial patterns rather than drifting aimlessly. In the calm waters of the silent seas, such transformations created a peaceful, almost magical scene. Ghost ships, reflecting the moon's phases, became reminders of time's subtle flow, of light's quiet influence, and of the soft, patient interplay between ocean, sky, and vessel. Their presence invited reflection, carrying the rhythm of the cosmos across gentle, undisturbed waves. On certain days, observers noticed vessels moving in ways that seemed in perfect rhythm with the rise and fall of the tides. Ships would drift slowly toward the shore as the tide crept in, then gently retreat as it ebbed, tracing a subtle back-and-forth pattern across the water. The movement was soft and deliberate, almost meditative. Sailors often described a calming sense of order, as though the ship were participating in a slow, natural dance choreographed by the ocean itself. Waves lapped against the hull, yet the vessel remained balanced, following the tides without disturbance or haste. In the tranquil expanse of the silent seas, these tidal patterns reinforced the ethereal presence of ghost ships. Observers felt a connection between vessel and water, between motion and stillness, understanding that even abandoned ships could reflect the gentle pulse of the ocean. The sight was a quiet reminder of harmony and patience, a drifting meditation on the rhythms that govern the natural world. In the stillness of the silent seas, observers sometimes thought they could hear faint murmurs drifting from a ghost ship. The sounds were subtle, like creaking timbers, distant laughter, or whispered conversations, but always barely perceptible, as if carried lightly by the wind and waves. These echoes created a delicate bridge between the present and the past. Sailors often described the experience as calming rather than frightening, a soft reminder of the human lives that once sailed these vessels. The whispers faded quickly, leaving only the sight of the ship and the gentle sway of water, but the memory lingered, evoking reflection on journeys long ended, yet not entirely forgotten. In the vast, quiet ocean, ghost ships carrying these echoes became vessels of memory. They reminded those who watched that the sea preserves more than its surface. It holds traces of stories, voices, and experiences, drifting softly through time, just beyond the edge of hearing. After witnessing the many drifting vessels of the silent seas, the ones that appear and disappear, glow faintly, follow tides, reflect stars, or carry whispers of the past, one begins to understand that the true mystery is not in their form, but in their presence. Ghost ships are reminders of journeys, of memories, and of time suspended between sea and sky. They move with quiet purpose, unaffected by wind or tide, yet perfectly attuned to the rhythms of the ocean. They mirror currents, tides, and celestial patterns, appearing at dawn and dusk, vanishing into fog, and drifting in alignment with horizons and islands. They exist both as objects and as symbols, of patience, of reflection, and of the gentle poetry of the natural world. In the calm expanse of the silent seas, ghost ships encourage us to slow down, observe, and notice subtle patterns that are easy to miss in the rush of daily life. They invite meditation, a sense of wonder, and a quiet awareness that the world is full of mysteries waiting to be seen, not with hurried eyes, but with patient attention. And so, after following these 100 secrets, we are left not with answers, but with a sense of serene curiosity. The ghost ships drift onward, silent teachers of calm, bearing stories, reflections, and the quiet magic of the ocean for all who watch and listen with care.